3 Australians, same country, same coals, same fuel prices, same Medicare levy, but wildly different costs, depending on city, housing, and household setup. One earns $50,000 a year, one earns $100,000, one earns $200,000. You'd think the differences would be obvious. Double the salary, double the life, triple it, triple the freedom. But that's not how Australia works in 2026. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why and where you actually sit on this map. Because the uncomfortable truth is this. In Australia, your salary is not your lifestyle. Your tax bracket, your rent, and your superannuation are your lifestyle. And most Australians have never done the maths on what those three things are actually doing to their take-home reality. Let's fix that right now. First, what these salaries actually pay. Before we talk about what life looks like at each level, we need to talk about what each salary actually puts in your pocket. Because the number on your contract and the number that lands in your bank account are two very different things in Australia. At $50,000 a year after income tax and the Medicare levy, you're taking home roughly $42,000 annually. That's about $3,500 a month, or $1,615 a fortnight. That is your life budget before you've paid for a single thing. At $100,000 a year, the take-home is roughly $77,000 annually, about $6,400 a month, or $2,960 a fortnight. It feels like a significant jump, and it is. But it is not double, because Australia's tax system is progressive, and crossing into higher brackets means a larger share of every extra dollar goes to the ATO before it reaches you. At $200,000 a year, take-home sits around $149,000 annually, roughly $12,400 a month. Again, not double the $100,000 take-home. The tax system means each additional dollar above the higher thresholds is taxed at increasing marginal rates, 37% kicking in at the upper middle range and 45% above $190,000. So the person earning $200,000 is not living twice as well as the person on $100,000. They are living more flexibly, and that distinction matters enormously when we get to housing. One more thing before we move on. From 1st July 2025, your employer is legally required to contribute 12% of your salary into superannuation on top of what they pay you. So a $100,000 salary comes with an additional $12,000 employer super contribution. But that money is not spendable cash. It's locked away until retirement. It matters for how you think about your overall financial position, but it won't help with next month's rent. Now, let's talk about what life actually looks like at $50,000. This is survival mode. Your take-home is $3,500 a month. Now let's see what Australia does with it. National median rent was around $650 a week in late 2025, higher in Sydney, lower in regional areas, though jobs tend to follow the rent. If you're renting in a major city and splitting with a housemate, you might be paying $1,200 to $1,400 a month for your share. Alone in a capital city, $1,600 to $2,000 is realistic. After rent, you have somewhere between $1,500 and $2,300 left. That needs to cover groceries, transport, utilities, phone, health insurance if you want it, and everything else life throws at you in a country where a weekly shop for one can easily run $150 to $200 at Coles or Woolworths. There is no margin here. There is no buffer. A single unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical bill, a broken phone, has nowhere to land except credit. Saving on $50,000 in a major Australian city is not impossible, but it requires a level of intentionality that most people don't have the bandwidth for when they're already stretched. This is not a criticism. It is a description of what the numbers actually produce. At $50,000 in Australia, in 2026, you are making the system work for you every single month. And that is exhausting. At $100,000, this is stability, but not comfort. Your take-home is $6,400 a month. Rent takes the same bite it always did. Let's say $1,800 in a shared capital city situation, or $2,200 living alone somewhere reasonable. After rent, you have $4,200 left. Groceries, transport, utilities, subscriptions, phone, call it $1,500 to $2,000 a month. You're now left with somewhere between $2,000 and $2,700 for everything else. Savings, eating out, a holiday, clothing. That's where the $100,000 life actually lives. And here's the thing. Most people earning $100,000 don't want to admit. You are comfortable relative to the median, but not necessarily insulated from housing pressure. If you're servicing a mortgage on a median-priced Australian property, which in Sydney is well above $1 million, your repayments depend heavily on your rate, deposit, and loan term. As a rough illustration, a $700,000 loan at current rates could see repayments of $4,000 to $4,500 a month. That's most of your take-home before you've bought a single piece of food. This is why so many Australians on $100,000 still describe themselves as getting by. Not struggling, not thriving, getting by. Because stability and comfort are not the same thing. And at $100,000 in Australia, you have largely achieved the first without reliably accessing the second. What you do have is resilience. You can absorb a shock. You can start to save in a meaningful way. You can think about the future without it feeling completely abstract. The difference between $50,000 and $100,000 isn't luxury. It's breathing room. At $200,000, this is optionality, and that changes everything. Your take-home is $12,400 a month. Rent or mortgage payments take the same nominal hit, but now they represent a fundamentally smaller proportion of your income. At this level, housing is no longer the dominant variable in your life. That shift is hard to overstate. At $200,000, the question stops being, can I afford this? And starts being, is this how I want to use my money? That reframe is one of the most significant quality of life upgrades that exists in personal finance. And it only becomes possible when housing stops consuming your entire income buffer. The extra income above $100,000 buys optionality, not a proportional jump in lifestyle. You can choose your suburb rather than accepting whatever's left over after everyone else has taken their share of the rental market. You can invest meaningfully, not just save. You can outsource the tasks that consume your time, the cleaning, the groceries, the admin, and use the hours you buy back to earn or rest or build. You recover from financial shocks without restructuring your life around them. But here is what $200,000 does not buy in Australia. It does not double the lifestyle of $100,000. The after-tax gap between $100,000 and $200,000 is roughly $72,000 a year. Significant, but not transformative in the way people imagine. What it buys is freedom of movement, the ability to make choices other income levels can't afford to make. The person on $200,000 who has a $2.1 million mortgage, 2 car repayments, and private school fees is not free. The person on $100,000 with a paid-off investment property and 6 months of savings in an offset might be. Salary is the starting point. Decisions are the outcome. Here is what the LinkedIn posts and the six-figure salary conversations almost never mention. In Australia, your effective lifestyle is not determined by your salary. It is determined by your salary minus tax, minus rent or mortgage, minus the cost of living in the city, where the job that pays that salary exists. A $100,000 salary in Sydney and a $100,000 salary in regional Queensland are not the same life. A $200,000 salary with a $1.8 million mortgage and a $200,000 salary with no debt are not the same freedom. And the jump from $50,000 to $100,000, which looks like a 100% income increase, produces roughly an 83% increase in take-home pay, which is then largely absorbed by the same rents that absorbed the $50,000 income. The gap narrows faster than the numbers suggest. There's another angle that almost nobody talks about. Higher salaries also mean higher super contributions and higher tax drag, so the visible jump in pay is even smaller than viewers expect. And in Australia, the real lifestyle gap is often not between $100,000 and $200,000. It's between owning housing and renting. That is a more original and memorable insight than the standard 6 figures is rich trope. This is not a pessimistic read, it is an accurate one. And the people who understand this early make better decisions about where to live, what to borrow, how much to save, and what income level they actually need to reach before their life changes in the way they're expecting. So what do you do with this? 3 things. First, run your actual number, not your gross salary, your net. Use the ATO's income tax calculator or any of the free take-home pay calculators available online. Write down what actually hits your account each month. Then subtract rent or mortgage. What's left is your real budget. Build everything around that number, not the one on your contract. Second, track where the buffer goes. The difference between $50,000 and $100,000 in take-home is roughly $2,900 a month. If you've had a pay rise in the last few years and can't account for where that extra money went, lifestyle inflation has done its job quietly. Knowing your real number puts you back in control. Third, think about optionality, not income. The goal isn't to earn $200,000. The goal is to reach the point where housing doesn't consume your entire buffer and you have real choices about how to use your money. For some people, that happens at $100,000. For others, it requires $150,000. It depends almost entirely on what your fixed costs are doing. In Australia, in 2026, the salary conversation is the wrong conversation. The right conversation is what your salary actually leaves you and what you're building with what remains. If this made you look at your own number differently, subscribe and turn on notifications. I will see you in the next one.